Dragons are one of the most famous mythical creatures ever, a giant lizard that breathes fire from its mouth. It's fertile ground for legends and stories across different peoples. That's why you'll find dragons in folk tales and popular myths, and of course in films and TV series. But I wonder, were these dragons ever real creatures? And is the idea even logical that a creature of this size could fly through the sky and breathe fire from its mouth? Welcome. But before we start, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you get our videos as soon as they drop. The strangest thing about dragons is that almost all ancient civilizations talk about them, from China and India through the Middle East to Europe and the Americas. In Western civilizations, for example, Europe and the Americas, you'll find that their culture depicts the dragon as a massive creature with strong legs and claws, a relatively long neck, and wings like those of a bat. But on the other side of the world, in China, the picture is completely different. In Chinese culture, the dragon is a massive creature that looks just like a snake, no wings, and has whiskers and horns. And as we said, it's not just in Europe and China. If you dig into the culture of any old civilization, you'll find they had a dragon. In Persia, they had a dragon called Aziz Aurora, described as a yellow dragon with horns and mountain size. And if we leave Persia and go to Mesopotamia, we'll find they also had a dragon named Mushukshu. If we go to India, we'll find Vritra. In Greek myths, there's the Hydra, which this time has more than one head. Move up north to the Norse myths, and you'll find the dragon Nothog. Even the ancient Egyptians had a creature resembling a giant snake called Apep or Apophis, which very closely resembled the Chinese dragon. They also had a depiction of a creature called Wadjet, which resembled the viper, snake, but had wings. The weird thing is that many peoples and cultures that talked about dragons were separated by thousands of kilometers. Yes, there's variation in how they describe them and what they look like from one civilization to another, but almost all of them talked about them. That's why researchers started asking themselves, why did all the ancient civilizations talk about dragons? Does this mean these creatures were actually real, or is there another explanation? The first opinion, which is logical, is that the dragons that ancient peoples described were not dragons at all, but dinosaurs. Over the ages, humans found large fossils and huge skulls buried in the ground, but until modern times, they didn't know what those fossils were. In fact, historical records among the Chinese from more than 1,700 years ago include accounts saying they found dragon bones. Because these skeletons were so big, bigger than anything they'd seen before, they created mythic imaginings of what those creatures had been like. They pictured them as powerful creatures ruling the earth, flying, breathing fire from their mouths, glowing in the dark, doing everything. Each civilization began to refine its description of them, to the point that in Chinese civilization, they said that dragons used to talk to humans. They were wise creatures, good and loving peace, like teacher Gaston Matar, just as an analogy. But on the flip side, Western civilizations demonized dragons. They even described dragons sometimes as the devil himself. Their culture is full of stories of legendary heroes fighting dragons and killing them so that good might triumph over evil. And because dinosaur fossils are found almost everywhere in the world, nearly all ancient peoples and civilizations talked about this strange creature. And of course, each people put their own spin on the idea and passed the conception down generation after generation until the dragon myth reached us. One of the things that supports this theory is that there were types of dinosaurs that really had wings to fly. The dinosaur Quetzalcoatlus had wingspan reaching 10 meters, and when standing, its height was roughly that of a giraffe. That's why many researchers say this dinosaur in particular is the origin of the dragon legend. Another viewpoint says that dragons are purely imaginary creatures produced by the minds of ancient peoples and have nothing to do with dinosaur fossils. The whole idea is that humans at some point in time imagined a powerful creature by merging various elements into one: the lion plus the snake plus the bat plus the eagle plus the crocodile, throw them all in a blender, and you got the dragon. And indeed, if you focus on how the dragon is described in myths, you'll find its head resembles a crocodile or lizard in the Western depiction, or a lion's head in the Chinese depiction. Its wings like bat wings, its claws like eagle talons, and in some descriptions, its body covered in scales like fish. Because of this, we can consider the dragon as a conception of a hybrid creature born from mixing multiple powerful animals. Some researchers also say the reason the dragon has so many reptilian or snake-like traits is because humans have a deep-seated instinctive fear of that type of animal, and that hypothesis is strong too, especially since ancient civilizations used animal figures in various forms and also worshipped them. But here a question arises. Could a creature with the specifications of the dragon described in myths actually exist in reality? For example, if an animal of that size and with those features could fly, and could it breathe fire from its mouth? For the first part, could it fly or not, the answer is no. The dragons in people's imagination and that we see in films and series are very large. One of them would weigh tons. If you look at their shape in the Western depiction, you'll see they have tremendous muscle mass, like they've never skipped a gym day. That's why a creature with those specifications not only struggles to fly, but even to jump a few meters up. And that's for several reasons. Animals that fly in general must have lightweight skeletal frames and bones that are brittle, not massive. But the skeletal frame of that fictional dragon is not like that at all. A creature like the Quetzalcoatlus we mentioned earlier, despite its length being that of a giraffe, researchers estimate its weight at only about 70 kilograms. Meanwhile, a giraffe of the same height weighs roughly 1,200 kilograms. Plus, the dragon's body is not like that of birds at all. Flying creatures have specific physiques so they can handle the dynamics of air and pressure, whereas the dragon's body resembles a predator like a lion or tiger. That's why the idea that a creature of the dragon's size and form could fly is improbable. As for the second part, about breathing fire from its mouth, contrary to what you might expect, although it's difficult, it's not impossible. Yes, in the animal kingdom, there are creatures that spit or emit hot fluids. The bombardier beetle, when it senses danger, expels from its body a hot chemical spray reaching about 100 degrees Celsius, and when it does so, it makes a small explosion. This discovery drove researchers crazy because they couldn't understand how such a fragile creature could heat the fluid in its body to boiling point without burning itself. But when they studied it, they found the beetle doesn't heat the fluid in its body. The trick is that it has two chemicals stored separately. When danger is sensed, they mix in a chamber at the end of the abdomen, and once they touch each other, the reaction releases heat and causes a small explosion. This made researchers think a dragon breathing fire might not be impossible. Maybe the mechanism is a chemical reaction rather than fuel or heat source. So if the dragon's body could manufacture a substance like diethyl ether, then maybe it could emit fire from its mouth. In the end, up to now, nobody has found a dragon fossil. All the information we have about dragons comes from myths and old stories. So we can confidently say the dragons we see in films and series could not have existed in reality. On the other hand, it's possible there were somewhat smaller animals in size that existed long ago and that could fly, and there's a possibility that they might have been able to expel hot fluids from their bodies. That's it. Who made it to the end? You're the real ones. Do us a favor, smash that like button before you go so we know how many made it. And don't forget, if you have a question that comes to you at midnight and is puzzling you, write it in the comments below so we answer it. Peace.